So you're a payments lead. You came into this position and you see that you have tens of millions of cards on file with one processor and you're stuck with them, but you want better negotiating power with that processor, or maybe you want better redundancy in your stack. So you know it's time to start moving your cards from one processor and start using them in a multi-processor environment. The problem is, how do you get the tens of millions of cards on file to the new processor? So today, that's what we're going to talk about. All right, so you're the merchant. This might be a recurring business, like a recurring payments business. This could be a customer-initiated business where people are looking to buy things, like instant buy them or like buy one individual item. And then the point is you have a list of PSP tokens on your server that you use to charge those cards when the customer wants to perform that transaction. What that also means is that over here at the PSP level, let's say this is your original processor, the PSP is going to store all of those PSP tokens, and they're also going to store the actual primary account number, the PAN. They could store a network token. They could store all the other details about that credential. Where you're limited is you don't have negotiating power with this PSP because all of your tens of millions of cards on file are stored with them. Maybe you're getting screwed in rates and you want to be able to diversify and introduce a secondary processor, introduce a geo-specific processor. So the first thing you want to do is reach out to your processor and say, hey, we want to perform a card export and we're going to send it over to our vault provider. This is where VGS comes in for those cards on file. The processor, they are going to get access to the VGS PGP key. And that is going to allow them to encrypt their card data, the actual primary account number, and the rest of your data that you are storing with the processor. They're going to encrypt that with a value that only VGS can decrypt. They create a file, it's fully scrambled, it's not useful to anybody else other than VGS. This gets delivered to the VGS SFTP server that we set up specifically for you. So this is your dedicated environment. We take that into our secure import area. We import each of those card records into your VGS vault. What this looks like practically is that VGS will have a reference for each of the PSP tokens that were sent over to us. So we will generate a card ID for each of the PSP tokens. What you get at the end of this, VGS will provide to you a file that has PSP token and a map to the PSP token and the VGS card ID. So it's always a one-to-one match. The PSP token that came in maps to one VGS card ID. What that means is that when you're going to perform that recurring transaction, you can decide if you want to send it to the original processor using their PSP token, or if you want to reference the data in your VGS vault to send it over to a secondary processor. You're either going to generate a new PSP token with the new processor, or you're going to just perform the transaction using the PAN or the network token provided by VGS. So there are a few things to watch out for subscription businesses. When you first initiate a subscription, you are going to get back the network transaction ID. This is sometimes called the TRAN ID or the NTI. There's a few different names for it. That PSP token subscription is going to be tied to a network transaction ID. And we need to ensure as part of this export that VGS either gets access to that network transaction ID or you as the merchant already have it. What this is going to mean is when you want to stop using PSP1 for subscriptions and you want to introduce PSP2, then you will use that network transaction ID with the PAN that you get access to from VGS to perform that payment. What this turns into is you never miss a subscription, even if you change who is processing that subscription. So the point of this is you as a merchant, you have tens of millions of cards potentially on file with processor 1. We want to ensure that when you start moving to processor 2, your payments still succeed.